Oh.
Wow.
That is dumb.
Well, I'm going to talk about eco-terrorism.
Got too excited about jorts.
I am leaving now with my Roomba or your blood on my hands.
I'm back on my bullshit.
What is meme if not air horn persevering?
No, this is not a family show.
And I quote, many American titties.
Why'd you have to bring Dane Cook to this, Andrew? No one wanted that.
Oh, you guys are not ready for what I've got today.
And I've apparently hit the very end of my attention span.
Give me like 30 seconds. I'm looking for rhymes.
Hello and welcome to Debate This, the show where no one is right, but someone is definitely wrong. In this show, we take time out of our busy adult lives to talk about comic books, video games, and how it is more likely that I'll be getting an English version of Mother 3 for Christmas than it is that Twitter exists in 2023.
Man, this joke is for me.
Yeah,
This joke
my
is
joke.
for me. I have been faithfully watching the downfall of Twitter for a week and a half now.
I would argue
It
that
is
this
my
more
favorite
importantly,
show.
I would argue that more importantly, this joke is for whoever tanked Eli Lilly and Company's stock by $8 million
God.
after one tweet.
Well, there was a article that came out today. Apparently, after that tweet went up, someone from Eli Lilly reached out to Twitter and was like, "You got to take it down."
Yeah.
And Twitter is so skeleton crude right now that it sat up there for hours.
So the good example of how skeleton crude Twitter is, they broke two-factor authentication.
They did.
What?
If you go to log in and have two-factor authentication set up right now, the text will not come.
Mhm.
Like the second the code
just,
will
like,
just
sits
not
in
get
limbo?
sent out.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
happened hours after fucking Elon, my big dumb face Musk, got in a very public war with one of his engineers.
Yeah.
Who Elon is like, oh well, it's so much slower on Android because of these reasons, and one of his engineers
And we're gonna
retweeted
cut the bloat.
Well, one of his engineers retweeted him. He's like, I've been doing this for 6 years. That's not how this works. And then Elon's like, yeah, I'm going to cut all this bloat out. Well, that bloat was two-factor authentication. So,
Oh, God.
whoops.
Well, I just turned two-factor on the other day, so I'm going to
Me
go
too,
turn
Matt.
that off now. Good Lord.
The best take over all this is obviously some people are like, hey, I'm leaving because Elon Musk has this platform that he owns. And the best take is still, why would you leave now? You're a week away from a class action lawsuit. At any moment, we could all be part of a class action lawsuit.
Yeah, man.
It's okay though, guys. He figured out that a verification system is a good idea, actually, and that Twitter should probably implement one.
Oh, man.
Good Lord. Okay, well, we got some Twitter hate out. I've turned two-factor authentication off. That's cool. Anyway, we are gathered here today to facilitate another flavor text. This one, like all of our flavor texts, was commissioned by one of our patrons over at patreon.com/debatethiscast. If you would like to commission your own DT-flavored book report, well, bad news. Commissions are closed for the rest of the year, but they will reopen.
Insert jail cell sound effect here.
That was pretty good, I think. They will reopen next year, and they will reopen to our patrons exclusively. So look out for more information about that, both in the show notes of this episode and also in future episodes. But this flavor text was commissioned by friend and quite literally family of the show, the Pharmacist, over in our Discord. As you, the listener, can likely tell from the title of the episode, this week, instead of learning about some nerdy topic, we're here to learn about each other, proving once and for all that the real content was the friends we made along the way.
Perfect.
Yeah, we did it.
The Pharmacist has asked us to delve into our nerdy origin stories today, so please allow me to scratch the record and ask the question, how did we get here? Longtime listeners of Debate This may remember an episode we did near the top of Season 2 called Meet the Fighters, in which we took some time to introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about how the podcast came to be. If you'd like to travel back to the before times and hear our young, shiny-eyed selves, that episode will be linked in the show notes as well. This episode, though, will be a little bit different. My goal for today is my goal for all flavor texts, to dig into the nitty-gritty and draw a line from past to present. Joining me today to talk about themselves are Todd, the Emperor's New Groove Thomas, Andrew, Fight Club Henderson, and Kyle, Sonic the Hedgehog Harper.
I want to guess.
Go ahead.
They're all David Fincher films, right?
That's not true.
Emperor's New Groove by David Fincher. That was really good. My guess is these are all movies that each of us have listed on our Facebook profiles.
Wow, that's hilarious. No. Oh my God, I wish it was, but that's not it either.
Man.
Sonic the Hedgehog would not be listed on my
Properties,
Facebook
I guess
profile.
I should have said.
Yeah.
Todd, care to venture a guess?
I mean, I love The Emperor's New Groove, so I don't know what I'm gonna do with this information you've given me. I don't have the through line here. All I can hear in my head is squeak squeakum, squeak squeaker. Have you seen my acorn?
Is that the answer? Is all three of them involve Patrick Warburton at some point?
No, not that either.
Tyler Durden. Tyler.
Gotta go fast, Peter.
Gotta
Stop
go fast,
it.
Peter.
Stop
Peter,
this.
gotta go fast.
No, I foreshadowed it. I gave it away. All three of these movies have a record scratch and a cut to main character with a voiceover that says, I bet you're wondering how we got here.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Good.
I thought Sonic
I
the
bet you're
Hedgehog
wondering
would give
where
it
we
away.
got here, Peter.
I thought you were gonna say each one of them has a very apparent Olive Garden product placement.
All
They
right.
are all also directed by David Fincher.
Peter.
Now, because I couldn't exactly research your backstories, at least not in any way that's fully legal, I thought we'd run this one a little bit differently. We're basically each going to take a turn in the proverbial hot seat for some little mini interviews. I've got a few questions for each of y'all to get us started, and if anyone else thinks of a question, they can throw it in along the way. So, Todd, you're first in the nickname order, so you get to be the first interviewee. Are you
first
excited?
victim.
Perfect. I'm gonna answer these questions so much better than everyone else.
Good.
Because everything is a competition in my life to make me feel like I'm a worthwhile human. So I'm just ready.
This
right
is
now.
the aspect of your personality we are all very well aware of.
Well, my first question is, what is your biggest weakness and how can it be used as a positive?
It's actually it's my weak knees. If you take me out at the knees, I go down easy. That's a lot of people don't expect it.
Anyway, my actual first question for you, Todd, and this is my first question for everybody. What is your earliest memory of a comic or video game?
Yeah, this is a really fun question. I specifically, so I grew up with Nintendo. We had an NES in my home, and I remember playing Duck Hunt with my sister growing up. And I really would point to two specific video game memories that are just like linchpins of my childhood, and not listing Nintendo, like having an NES is one of them. But I remember the Christmas that we got the sepia Game Boys, the big brick
the classic brick Game Boy, yeah.
The classic brick Game Boy that you could not play if you were in dim light or not direct sunlight. And specifically, so at the time, we were my family, we were living with my grandparents. And I vividly remember my grandmother, who is still alive and is a wonderful person, said, "Oh, great, we can take those in the bathroom." And I didn't know, how could I have known that in the year of our
right
Lord,
she was?
Yeah, in the year of our Lord, 1991 or so, that it would still hold true 30 plus years later. So that is a pivotal video game memory. The other one that really sticks with me that I think is a little bit different is I grew up in a small town where the local town was the biggest attraction. It had a Godfather's Pizza. And at that Godfather's Pizza, they had the Simpsons arcade game.
Oh,
good one.
Just and this isn't the most important video game memory that I have, but I do remember sinking what had to be $10 of quarters into that machine and completely disregarding my family for a good 40 minutes while I fought my way to Mr. Burns on that arcade cabinet. And as far as comics go, I think the first comic I actually did own was a copy of Blackest Night. That was, I think,
nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
The
I didn't
only
really
DC
collect
comic to ever exist, Blackest Night.
only one. If you would listen to this podcast, you'd know that. Yeah, I didn't really read comics growing up, but I did watch, the Amazing Spider-Man, Batman, all that after X-Men after school.
R.I.P. Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, R.I.P. But yeah, I'd say those are like the pivotal like building blocks, because for me, video games, like growing up as not the only child, but I just always had sisters. Video games were like an escape. That was just what I did to get away from like my family. And then as I got older, it became a social outlet. Like video games have always been a social thing for me. It's just a fun switch over the years of, I don't play a lot of single player video games. All my video games are multiplayer now because I want to connect with my friends and use it as a social outlet.
Right on, right on. Speaking of social outlets, that's a good transition to my next question, which is you are our resident rules lawyer and D&D wet towel. And I wanted to ask you, I know maybe not everybody listening to this listens to our D&D content, but I was curious for you, Todd, when did you first start playing D&D and how did you start doing that?
Yeah,
to get that answer, Matt, you'll need to roll a perception check.
You might roll a 2. Yeah, so listeners to this flavor text, you may have listened to another recent flavor text, which is our Dungeons and Dragons flavor text. So you probably got some of this already. But I started playing in junior high. So I was around 7th or 8th grade. So one of my good friends, his mother and his father had played it when his father had been in the Navy. Like his naval buddies would come over and they'd all play D&D and like drink. And so she was like, oh yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of fun. And so I got the box set for Christmas in 7th or 8th grade. And my friends and I played all through high school, and then played just a little bit with college with some of these guys, a little bit in grad school. And then now it is just a cornerstone of my personality and who I am. I am the resident rules lawyer, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that the joke that I make, and I'll continue to make, the space in my mind that should be reserved for loved ones' birthdays and weddings is there to tell you that, how your strength score factors into how far you can jump, or that dark vision extends 60 feet in low light, and that there's a whole bit about if you're invisible, how that affects what you can and cannot hit and what kind of disadvantage you might have. And that just lives in my brain. And, if you're listening to this answer and you did just listen to our D&D episode, you know how much of my life is just consumed by this. And it's a cornerstone of my personality at 35.
I was going to make the joke that birthdays and wedding anniversaries is offloaded to Facebook now, but that might not be true for too much longer.
I mean, hey, there's something to be said that as Twitter's burning down, no one is looking around and saying, why don't we go to Facebook? I mean, that's really saying something, I think.
Wild.
Yeah. I think I saw a survey the other day that said the metaverse currently has 38 active users. So,
incredible.
If
34 of them are developers that make the metaverse.
Things are going really well at the
And the other
Metacamp.
4 are Zuckerberg's alternate accounts.
Yeah, it's his alts.
Yeah. Todd, what is the most obscure D&D fact that you can just like rattle off the top of your head? Preferably one that wasn't even in the flavor text, even though I wasn't there, so I can't. I can't call you out on it.
That's a good question. I'm gonna cheat, and I am gonna pick one that was in the flavor text, and it's only because it's so wild. It's that the Kuo-Tua can't imagine their own gods and powers into existence if they all believe each other.
Oh my god!
A group of Kuo-Tua can get together and say like, well, I think we have a god, and be like, yeah, we do. I think I saw him, and suddenly it just exists.
Which, may I remind you, is the central plot to critically acclaimed MMO Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh, I was going to say Peter Pan, because that's like the whole thing with
also
fairies and Peter
critically
Pan.
acclaimed MMO Peter Pan.
Peter Pan.
It's also the orcs in Warhammer 40k. We did this all already. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, listeners, listen to our D&D flavor text.
Yeah, I wasn't there that day. So, and also Peter Pan.
And also Peter Pan.
So here's my question for you then, Todd. You got into D&D at a really influential time. Obviously, it is something that has rotted your brain from the inside out. So I want to know, has your love of D&D, be it the way the game works, the way the world works, your understanding of social structure from D&D, whatever, has that influenced the way that you feel about like other nerdy properties, other video games, other content you consume?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that I think that every single multiplayer game or even properties that involve teams I can consume at this point in time, I look at through roles. The way that, someone who has played critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy
Peter Pan.
14 Peter Pan might look and say like, oh, we need, this person is playing this role, this person's playing this role. Ever since kind of understanding that D&D is a team game and people play their parts, that is just how I look at everything that involves multiple people, whether it is a team-based squad shooter or, Dungeons and Dragons as it is, or Overwatch. I'm always constantly thinking like, oh, like, okay, well, who's the support? Who's the tank? Who's going to be the damage dealer? Like, who's the glass cannon? And I can thank D&D to that, because our first team was a fighter, a cleric, I want to say a rogue, and absolutely no real spellcaster. And so
unnecessary.
not an ideal comp. Leaning heavy on the marshals, probably not great.
Very much an 8th grader's mentality.
Yeah, when you're an 8th grader, you're like, nah, I don't want to cast spells. Also, back then, your wizard had 4 hit points at level 1, so not great. But yeah, I think that D&D has made me look at the crunchier aspects of specifically video games, to think how the pieces fit together, which I wouldn't admit this to my coworkers now. That's how I look at work as well. I want to know how the pieces all fit together and how everything aligns and pushes in the same direction. And I can thank Gary Gygax and Wizards of the Coast for that in 2001-ish.
What role in what D&D role do you see yourself as in your workplace setting?
Oh man, I'm more Chaz the project manager than I want to say that I am. I don't know. I think to go back to 4th edition when you could have a commander who was a force multiplier trying to move people and projects along in positive ways and encourage people, and then in the background just be angry when things don't go right because other people have messed it up.
Is that a martial support class?
Yep.
Kinda? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say. The real answer I want to give is Artificer, and I've made a giant metal scorpion that goes to war for me against my enemies. That's the role I take in the workplace. But I don't know.
His coworkers hate the giant metal scorpion.
Yeah, bring your pet to work day is really something with a giant metal scorpion.
Giant metal scorpion in real life is the guy that microwaves fish at the office. That's who that is.
I was gonna say that's a wild magic sorcerer. That's the guy. That's the guy that microwaves fish in the office. Hey, come back to me later if you want more hot takes on who's what role in the office. I got them all.
All right. Well, then pivoting a little bit away from D&D, but onto something else that I know you're obsessively passionate about. I really had to search for an adjective there for a second.
Right.
But at what point did you go all in on the MCU? As I think the other 50% of this podcast that is the most into the MCU.
Yeah, so prior to the MCU proper, I had consumed all the movies that led up to Avengers 1 in 2012. But I saw all the Spider-Man. I saw all the X-Men. I'd seen all of those X people. Specifically, some of those movies were still coming out when I lived in Florida, and so I would go to midnight releases by myself. I think I saw First Class in the movies or in the theater by myself. I think the turning point for me was probably Avengers in 2012. I remember going with grad student friends to go and see Avengers 2012 and being like, this is dope. All these movies all fit together. I am into it. This is cool. What else are they going to do from here? And I'm pretty sure since Guardians of the Galaxy, which I know at least Kyle and Andrew, we saw together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I've seen every single movie as it's come out in theaters since then. Prior to then, I didn't see The Dark World when it came out in theaters. That one
never actually came out in theaters. People remember that.
Oh, it was in theaters. I was there.
I also was there.
I remember picking up Thor: The Dark World at Walmart on Blu-ray, and I was like, "Huh, all right."
I could have sworn that movie
was a
only
movie.
exists on planes.
On planes and in hotel rooms.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's when I got into it. The whole world building they were doing was really dope. And ironically, to dunk on a different movie that I picked up on Blu-ray, Man of Steel was out around that time. And I picked up Man of Steel on Blu-ray, and I was like, this movie is long and bad and doesn't do anything for me until the last 10 minutes. And that's when I was like, okay, Marvel's doing a cool thing. Like I'm in to pay attention to what's going on here. And this too will become a major cornerstone of my personality for years to come. To the point that my partner goes with me to all of these movies now, except for like Morbius. I didn't make Shannon go to Morbius.
Good.
Do you quiz her afterwards? Make sure she was paying attention. Does she have to fill out a little worksheet?
I will watch all the Disney Plus shows, most of the Disney Plus shows. And that's where we'll watch a Disney Plus show and something really big will happen and I'll look for her response. and I'll be like, okay, so that was really important because of this, and this. And she'll go,
that is
all right,
that is
cool.
a fool's errand, Todd. You will always be disappointed.
Yep.
As she looks up from Pinterest and says, "Oh, cool."
Well, and
who's that?
Because I am who I am, like I'll watch them the morning they come out on Disney Plus. And then later we'll watch them together as a goddamn family.
So you start watching her as the big moment comes up. You're like, are you paying attention? Something cool's
really
gonna happen.
cool, right?
Yeah, the big moment when White Vision shows up suddenly and is choking Scarlet Witch. I'm watching Shannon while she's half-heartedly watching the show. Yeah, the Marvel way of life is just a common thing here in the Thomas household.
Excellent. Well, those are the questions that I had pre-prepared for Todd. Kyle, Andrew, do you guys have anything you want to throw in there?
You mentioned, so you didn't read a lot of comics. Did you read any comics growing up?
No, not really. My library of paper media that I consumed was approximately 6 years of Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
I remember when I got rid of that stack, it was like a Tupperware tub. Like pounds of Nintendo Power. For a while, I was ripping out the 3-page posters that they would give you, and I'd hang them up in my room.
Oh, same. Absolutely same.
My God, and for a brief time, I had Game Informer. It was just a little edgier than Nintendo Power. Was what Game Informer was.
Because you got Game Informer when you signed up for GameStop's rewards program.
Yeah,
there was like a 3-year window when you signed up.
That's right.
Got a year Game Informer. So we all had Game Informer at one point. Todd, what's your go-to Sunday afternoon MCU movie or superhero movie for that matter?
That's a good question. The movie that I feel like I could just pick up at any point in time now and watch, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I just think that
you can handle that much emotion on a Sunday afternoon.
That's intense, man.
Yeah, dude. Well, I gotta be drunk if I want to watch Guardians too.
I have enough daddy issues, but I don't need daddy issues on a Sunday afternoon. That's too much.
That's the thing. I'm carrying some of those myself, and it's cathartic.
That's my secret, Cap.
Todd likes to cry before he goes back to work on Monday.
To have a full range of you think you've solved your daddy issue, it's become a bigger thing and you're now at war with it, and then it ends in a resolution and depression. I need that. On different levels, but also not totally unrelated to daddy issues, Shang-Chi is just such a good watch, which I'm going to put my flag in the ground now. Best movie of Phase 4. I think I think it could probably fight for some podium spaces with Spider-Man No Way Home. And I would probably put Black Panther on the podium with it. But I think Shang-Chi was the best thing to come out of Phase 4 so far. And so I could always watch that. I still think my favorite Marvel movie, though, is Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is, it's just heavy enough that I want to watch it because it's kind of got that spy thriller piece to it.
Winter Soldier is that probably the heaviest that Marvel gets, and it's good.
And I'm hoping they capture that energy with Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
I think they're going to, and I'm really hopeful. Like I don't need yuck 'em up jokes. I need Sam Jackson almost dropping an F-bomb and then punching a man in the face who turns into a green alien is what I need.
You know what, Disney? Give us our F-bomb in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get one.
We can handle it.
Look, I just watched 10 episodes of Andor, and there's like a non-zero amount of torture in Andor.
Right.
The mouse can do an F-bomb now. It's fine.
Yeah.
There is a moment in talking about the mouse. There's a moment in the new Black Panther movie where there should definitely be blood on a weapon. There's a close up of a weapon, and there should be blood on that weapon.
There sure should be.
And there's no blood whatsoever. And when New Rockstars did a recap of it, they flashed a picture of Mickey Mouse over the spear. And I was like, oh, that's right. This is a Disney property. I forgot.
It might be the mouse. It might also be China. China has weird.
I don't think
blood.
Disney cares quite as much anymore because multiple movies, China isn't allowing them to be released out there. And so Disney's like, okay. Sorry that we had two men kissing. Be mad, China. Deal with it.
They will. They will be mad.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, while we are angering China, those are all of the questions I've got for you, Todd. Andrew,
speaking of angering China, here's
Speaking of angering China. Andrew,
is that a good segue? Did I do it, everyone?
It's your turn.
Everybody, it's me.
What's the most inflammatory thing you can say to the People's Republic of China?
Let's get a good clean cut of this.
Free Taiwan?
That's so bad. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, hey, Andrew, how you doing, man?
Yo, I'm here. I'm good. My brain is a puddle of mud. Much like early 2000s new metal band Puddle of Mud.
All right, good. Andrew, what's your earliest memory of a comic or video game?
So much like early 2000s new metal band Puddle of Mud, my earliest memory is getting Super Mario World with the pack-in of the Super Nintendo. I imagine Puddle of Mud all had Super Nintendos.
Can you name one Puddle of Mud song right now, please?
Blurry.
All right, you got one.
That wasn't the one I was going to go with.
That was the one. Much like my memory, blurry. Okay, sorry. I've got brain fog. Hey everybody. What question am I answering? Reverse earliest memory. So I got a Super Nintendo when I was like 3 or 4. And that pretty much solidified it. I was an only child. We may have talked about this once or twice on the show. So the Super Nintendo was my way of my ability to play by myself. And much unlike Todd, I only played single player games, and that's where I developed a love for playing single player games, and that's always been like a way to escape. So I had Super Mario World. I love Super Mario World. I played the whole goddamn game. But I think like every little kid had video game consoles. I think where it really clicked was playing games like Donkey Kong Country. That one like really solidified it. It was like, I'm going to devote my life to this. Like this is it. This is me as a person. There was another video game that it wasn't until honestly like a couple years ago that I realized that I kind of remembered. It was like core memory unlocking that I played a lot that I didn't realize that it was very influential. It was actually a Final Fantasy game, if you can believe it.
I'm shocked.
What?
But I didn't. But I was too young to realize what I was actually playing. Is anybody familiar with Final Fantasy Mystic Quest?
No, I can't believe you even asked that. Like we might have been.
I thought maybe Todd might be
there.
Hang on, let me
look it up.
I'm looking it up.
It is very much. It was very much created and billed as baby's first JRPG.
I was gonna say I definitely had a PlayStation Final Fantasy that I could not even like fathom how to start.
Yeah.
So like it went in my PlayStation 1, so I was like, that's a lot of words. I'm not reading that. And then
it was Mario RPG a year before Mario RPG came out. It tailored to the same audience.
It's not on my radar.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I've seen these screenshots before, but this isn't. It's not me.
Anyway, the long story short is, in the same vein as Mario RPG, it's a very like oversimplified, find the 4 crystals, earth, wind, fire, water, earth, water, wind, fire, crystals, and travel the world and fight monsters.
Earth, Wind, and Fire crystals are my favorite band.
And travel the world and fight monsters, yada yada yada. And that really had an impact, and that I think really kind of whetted my appetite for like RPGs and like more story driven things like that. And then of course playing Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII. That's just when it just really just kind of set in motion. My earliest memory of a comic. Does anybody remember? And I think this is the only comic I owned my entire 18 years of childhood. Does anybody remember the Spider-Man Smoking Dare comic?
No.
Wait, hang on.
This is gonna click for at least 75% of you jerks.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen this before.
I'm too young for this.
It's a Spider-Man comic that everybody got in Dare, where Spider-Man fights like a big cigarette man.
I think we were a big Dare school.
We were too, and I have no memory.
We did not have Dare at my school.
Ours was just a sheriff would show up once a week and just lecture us about drugs we didn't know were drugs until he told us they were drugs.
Officer Jenkins at my school, yeah.
It's Spider-Man, Storm, and Power Man battle smoke screen.
Spider-Man, Storm, and Power Man. What a wild combination of people.
Well, Matt, it was the two black characters everyone knew from the comics at the time, and then Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm gonna post this in the chat.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
please post it in chat because I can't find it
here. I got you.
You got me. Okay. So it's a reprint. It's like a reprint of that, and Smokescreen was this character that they would bring out.
How have we not talked about Smokescreen before?
Right.
Yeah. Well,
because he was invented by the police. I
mean, this has been like number 3 on my stupid Spider-Man villains list every single time. There's stupider villains. Like he's just not the stupidest villain. So yeah, I remember like reading this comic like 1,000 times because I loved Spider-Man. I just never had any comics, but that was my first memory of a comic, albeit a very lame one.
So you talked a lot about Final Fantasy and JRPGs, and you have talked at length on the show about being an anime kid in the 90s and how that directed a lot about what you became interested in. So what was your gateway to Japanese entertainment, and kind of walk us through the beginning of Andrew Weeb journey?
Yeah, I'd love to. So after playing games like the Final Fantasy, couple Final Fantasy entries that I mentioned, and other like RPG-esque games, that definitely like started getting an interest in that formula. And I liked playing a lot of the more story-driven games, which especially at the time were more of the Japanese created games. And of course, like being a Nintendo fan, everything was coming from Japan, right? So there was just a big cross section there. Also, on the other side of the fence, enter the Toonami block. Oh man, the Toonami block. So, for anyone who isn't our age and didn't grow up around the time when we did, Cartoon Network had a block on afternoons, conveniently from 2:30 to 4:30, right after school let out. Specifically in the like when school's letting out period, where they would play anime, and it was usually the 4Kids or Funimation Super English dubs,
Oh, yeah.
But including that block were some of the more formidable, especially for me, which are Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon. And those two bad boys would play back to back, and I would watch those every day after school for like 3 years straight.
Can you timestamp that for me? Like, give me a year.
Middle school.
Give me a year. Middle school is not a number.
2000, 2001.
Okay, cool. So I'm really curious. I Googled when did Toonami start.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 shows on the first Toonami block to air, and I'm curious if you three can guess what any of those 4 shows were.
Can we get a year when Toonami started?
March 17th, 1997.
Okay. I know Dragon Ball Z has to be one of them.
Nope.
Oh no, it's 1997. That was too early for Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm already lost without
I've only heard of 3 of these 4 shows. One of these shows I've not heard of.
Is Astro Boy one of them?
Nope.
How about
this wasn't the block that did Space Ghost Coast to Coast, was it?
No,
that's Adult Swim.
That's Adult Swim. Yeah, you're right.
Speed Racer.
Nope.
No.
There is really only one show on this list that I would categorize as like truly anime.
Was this when they were playing like Reboot?
No, Reboot's a good guess though.
Reboot was not on there.
Oh, what's the other?
Man, why don't we have a reboot?
What's the not deboot one? Dot hack sign, is that?
Wasn't that a game? I thought Dot Hack was a game.
It was both. I'm going to talk about Dot Hack later. It was both. Okay, 1917 early for Dot Hack. Let's move on.
Anyway, to round it out, it was Thundercats.
Oh, yep.
Oh.
Cartoon Roulette, which I've never heard of. And there were 2 episodes played during the block. This was the one I categorized as real anime, Voltron.
Okay, yeah.
And then The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest.
Oh, Johnny Quest.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Johnny Quest. That absolutely lines up.
Yeah, a couple years later, they changed tack and they made them a little more like traditional animes or animes that we recognize a little later. So Dragon Ball Z, obviously, like fuck me up, Dragon Ball Z. And then Sailor Moon. I loved Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon's great. I mean, it's so much fun. And how often do we reference Tuxedo Mask on our show?
So often.
Where that really came into a head was after I got super into like the Final Fantasy series and other JRPGs. By the time the PS2 came out, that's where I really was like all in on.
I'm an anime boy now.
Yeah, that was when I was like, I am Andrew, anime boy.
Did your PS2 come with a flame button-up shirt? Did you own a flame button-up shirt?
I didn't, but I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell you right now. I rolled with a crowd who did. So what was really funny was my when I got into high school, I started watching more and more stuff through Comcast On Demand, because like Comcast was one of the first to kind of we had Comcast in Pittsburgh, and Comcast was one of the first to kind of pioneer like on-demand TV. So in 2002, I had access to like a ton of anime. So I was able to watch like episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion and all these things without like bootlegging it, which was great.
Wow.
Which was a really cool opportunity. And it just existed, which was really cool. So I got to catch up on a lot of that stuff. And then I fell into an anime crew.
A group of problematic bachelors that he calls the squad.
Bachelors. And you know how like every school has a weird table?
Yeah.
That was the weird table.
If you don't know about the weird table, it's because you sat at the weird table.
I both knew about the weird table and also sat at the weird table. I dabbled. And I hung out with a group of dudes who were very much into anime. Like they were the kind of guys, like they're nice people, but they were the kind of guys who had like anime girls as their little avatar on message boards, and they had all the swag, and they would go to all the conventions. So I went to a couple conventions in high school. I went to my first anime convention sophomore year of high school. It was TekoshoCon in Pittsburgh. Teko is steel in Japanese.
Ooh, they really branded that for the city.
They sure did, Matt. They sure did. It was right outside it was in the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. It was a pretty decent con.
That's a big convention, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I came home with like a stack of VHS tapes, as you do. And then I have a distinct memory because my dad would never let me hear the end of it for years to come. But after we came home, my one friend who was especially weird looked at me very serious and he said, next time you have to dress up.
And what happened next time?
I dressed up.
Who did you dress up as, Andrew?
How spiky was your hair, Andrew? Tell us.
Could you be my angle or my devil?
I also tried to spike my hair once. It did not go well. I walked into school and everyone was like, "What have you done?" I was like,
right.
So Full Metal Alchemist was and probably still is one of my favorite anime of all time. I have never been a costume guy, and I never enjoyed dressing up even as a kid. So I've always been the like half-ass costume guy. Well, my junior year, I went on a ski trip with my church group, and I broke my wrist on the bunny hill because I'm not very good at outside things because I had a Super Nintendo and Super Mario World.
Right.
Because you were in an anime troupe.
Because I was in an anime squad. So I had this like not cast, but like ace cuff or whatever. Well, the main character of Full Metal Alchemist doesn't have an arm. He has a metal arm. So I had my mom spray paint this cast.
Good.
And that was my metallic arm. And I wore a red coat.
You at some point slapped your hands together and did a series of finger points and then touched something, pretending to turn it into something else.
Because we've been paid to do this episode, I legally am obligated to tell you yes.
Wow, that's really good.
Next question.
Well, I want to keep on this anime train for a second, and that's the last time I'll ever say that sentence in my life. But
no, I want off the anime train. Actually,
you're the suplex that anime train.
I was curious.
It's a Final Fantasy VI reference.
we got it.
Shut up. Let me ask the question. I was curious if there were any ways that your experience as an anime kid in the 90s influences the way that you interpret or consume media today.
I think it does. One of the problems with growing, like, it was one of the double-edged sword, I guess, of kind of being like growing up and watching anime only on Toonami, and then like going to this convention and meeting these people and learning that like, holy shit, like Dragon Ball Z is like not even the gateway drug. It's like, we don't talk about it. Dragon Ball Z are like is like the black owls, or like, what are the like little like this reference, I'm losing it. Doesn't matter. Let's scratch this.
What just happened?
No, I'm leaving it. I want to know.
Sorry, I've got COVID brain.
He's saying Dragon Ball Z is too normy.
Dragon Ball Z isn't even a gateway drug. It's like it's like a clove cigarette. Comparatively.
Okay. Yeah. All right, got it.
Yeah.
It's not even baby's first anime.
Yes.
It's Super Weenie Hut Jr.
Yes. But like there's all these things, and it's like it's almost decision overload, right? Like there's so many things. It's like I don't know where to start because there's so many things that I have to watch. I will never consume all of this. Therefore, I'm not going to consume any of it. And I think
that is legitimately my experience with anime around that time.
And that has rung true in my current life so often, because now we all find ourselves like very much like me opening up my Comcast app for the first time and being like, holy shit, there's so much here that I've never heard of. Open up any streaming app and you're like, holy shit, there's so much here. I am never going to watch all of this stuff. Therefore, I'm going to turn this off and just go play Overwatch 2.
I love that energy, and it actually like moves on really well to my next question, which was to ask you, in contrast to Todd, you are in the 50% of this podcast that is not like fully lost in the MCU sauce. And so I was just curious if you could talk about your experience as a casual Marvel fan who has largely been drugged through the MCU by your friends.
Yeah, I love this question. I really do, because I think that's accurate. It's very valid. There's a lot of the Marvel movies that I probably would not have seen, and I didn't see until we did this podcast. The Winter Soldier was like one of the first Marvel movies that I saw in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
which is wild to think about.
Which is wild. I saw the Avengers. Because because it was an experience, but
because everybody saw the Avengers.
Because everybody saw the Avengers,
yeah.
But I remember distinctly my dad and I going to see the Winter Soldier. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. This is awesome, and it's still my favorite. and again, like it's my favorite of them, just because it's a really good movie. So when growing up though, I had a very I loved comic characters. I loved Marvel characters. I loved I love the X-Men comic or art cartoon. Excuse me, sorry. I loved the X-Men cartoon. That was my favorite one. I liked Spider-Man. I liked Batman, but X-Men was absolutely my favorite. And I was like ride or die X-Men, and then I started playing Spider-Man video games. So I played the Spider-Man N64 game, which was really good.
Right.
And I played a lot of the Spider-Man Super Nintendo. There's like 3 Spider-Man Super Nintendo games that are all pretty decent. They're beat 'em ups. So growing up, X-Men, Spider-Man, ride or die. So when the movies came out, I was all in. Like, I loved the Tobey Maguire movies. I was a Spider-Man 3 apologist, still kind of am to this day.
Big Bully Maguire fan.
Big Bully Maguire fan. But once, I think the thing that killed it for me is, you guys are going to laugh, when I saw X-Men 3 The Last Stand.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I left that theater and I was like, never again.
Really?
It was my villain origin story. I hated that movie so much. I never watched
it was a bad movie.
I never watched another X-Men movie until last year, when I watched, like, when I caught up on First Class, Apocalypse, like all the next ones. That was I didn't watch any other X-Men stuff until then.
Any of you telling me that you didn't feel something when Wolverine had to stab Jean Grey? Spoiler alert.
I hated that movie so much. You know why? Because I love Cyclops. And
they did Cyclops pretty dirty.
Cyclops dirty. I'm gonna disagree with you, Todd, and maintain the only good thing that to come out of that movie is the meme reference to the "I'm the Juggernaut bitch" YouTube video that they crammed in there.
Yeah, that was so dumb.
Because it's so stupid.
The only thing good that truly came out of X-Men 3 was X-Men 2, and that was Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's role in X-Men 2, who then that actor didn't come back because he launched a line of cologne.
Oh.
Interesting.
Too busy.
I think to accurately answer your question, Matt, and to refocus a little bit on the MCU, that's like more of that, or that's like me, like historical origin story. I think I have now experienced the MCU both as someone who is very much on the outside and very much on the inside. And in this last year and a half, I have enjoyed all of the Marvel stuff so much more. So much more than I enjoyed anything in phases 1 or 2 on the first watch. And I think a lot of that is context. Is now, you know, when I saw Civil War for the first time, I was so confused. I'm like, who are these people? I had never seen Wanda Maximoff in anything. And I was like, and that to me, I felt so much more burnout on Marvel Contact back then, when it was just like this kind of who's who of good looking people just beating up aliens. But like now, you know, now with all the content, I'm like invested in the characters. It genuinely doesn't make me feel nearly as burnt out. Now I feel like I want to go do more. I just read recently. I read through like 2 years worth of the Miles Morales Spider-Man run, which is really fucking good.
It's really good.
But like now, interacting with this stuff makes me want to dive in more when it never did before.
Right on. That's really cool. That's awesome to hear.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Well, those are the questions that I had for Andrew. Todd, Kyle, do you have anything to throw in?
Same question I posed to Todd. What's your Sunday afternoon MCU movie or superhero movie?
That is
doesn't have to be
Spider-Man 3, but just the dancing scene.
Spider-Man 3.
Just the part where he says, "I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye." Just that part over and over again.
I think it's honestly probably one of the Captain Americas.
Mm-hmm.
I think any of those have a lot of good rewatch value.
Yeah.
Guardians 1, not Guardians 2. I can't take that emotional toll.
What is the worst 3-class D&D party you could put together?
The worst what?
The 3 worst D&D classes you could put together in a group.
3 Rangers.
Boom, roasted.
Have you read any manga, Andrew?
Yeah, not in a long time. I did in high school.
Back at your weebiest.
At the weebiest. I haven't currently as an adult. Mostly just because like I'm not buying books. I'm gonna
did you
buy a book.
Did you read like series? I don't want to say entire series because I know like mangas are
manga
unendingly long.
Yeah, manga's really hard. Manga's
or
really
did you
hard
just like
because
read what you could get?
Well, and manga's tough because it's not like American comics, which are episodic. Like
right,
manga, I mean, they are very much like serial. Yeah, I mean, they're like One Piece where they're written arcs, but they're still very serial. Most of my manga I borrowed from friends.
Okay.
And they were a lot of like short runs, so they would be like 7-issue manga.
Sure.
And they were mostly romantic.
Stand out? Ooh.
Yeah, there was one that I read that honestly was really good. It's called Love Hina, and it was a really popular like romance one, but it was like comedy romance, but it was romance like a boy. It was romance for a teenage boy, you know, like
sure.
I'm in a school full of hot girls, you know, it was like that kind of thing. But I loved it when I was 14 because I wanted to live in a school of hot girls and be
you
like,
were the target audience.
Exactly.
If okay, so you had mentioned your cosplay of Full Metal Alchemist.
Yep.
As someone who at age 35 does want to go back and consume that media, what would you suggest? Because there's Full Metal Alchemist, there's Full Metal Brotherhood.
Yeah.
I don't know what the difference is.
So actually, and this is one of the manga that I read digitally. I read the entire manga of Full Metal Alchemist and watched both shows. So manga, we've talked about this before, but almost every anime show is an adaptation of a manga. Mm-hmm. And there's a running joke where an anime adaptation will usually start after the manga and end before it. Because just like Game of Thrones, like it's quicker to do a show than it is to write a book. Right.
Walking Dead, whole thing. Got it.
And so the idea of filler comes from anime adaptations because they have to fill the time while the manga catches up.
It's the powering up episodes.
Full Metal Alchemist, the anime, is the original adaptation of the manga, but it veers off to the side. Instead of doing filler, they just created a different story. So
it was the Game of Thrones route.
It's the Game of Thrones route. So Full Metal Alchemist and the manga run in line until like season 2, and then it just goes burp and just does its own thing. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the official adaptation of the full manga. Gotcha. So if you were to line up Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and the original Full Metal Alchemist series, they are identical for the first 7 episodes. The first 7 episodes of Brotherhood are like the first 13 or 14 episodes of the original anime adaptation.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the answer, a lot of people say good. Watch both. I think they are both very good. If you're only going to watch one, watch Brotherhood.
Because I recently saw one of them TikToks of the Chimera episode.
Oh boy.
And I was like, well, I got to go back now. I need to hurt again.
And I think did you see the Chimera episode exists in both. The Chimera episode in Brotherhood is like episode 3, and it's like it is the mid-season arc of the original anime.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, I have learned more about anime than I came in here expecting to, but that's
a flavor text after
fine.
all.
It is a flavor text after all. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Kyle and I's chance in the hot seat.
Oh, that song is so fun and wholesome. What is that?
This? Oh, it's just the theme song to that horror game, Doki Doki Literature Club.
Doki Doki Literature Club? I've never heard of that. That name doesn't sound much like a horror game.
What? You mean you never saw the game being played on YouTube for like that entire year everyone was talking about it?
No. Why?
Oh. Well, in that case, it's a cute little indie dating sim about a high schooler who joins an after-school literature club run by 4 very anime girls and is definitely not fucked up in any way. So stop asking.
Cool. So what makes it a horror game? I'm gonna have to play this stupid game to find out, aren't I? and none of you jerks are going to tell me why it's fucked up until I see the thing, aren't you? Okay, yeah. When are we streaming it?
Glad you asked. Tune into twitch.tv/debatethiscast on Tuesday, November 29th and Wednesday, November 30th to watch us watch Todd play through indie darling Doki Doki Literature Club. The carnage will begin at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Cool.
All right, welcome back to this flavor text about us, proving once again the real content was the friends we made along the way. Kyle, it's your turn to sit in the Debate This hot seat, so let me ask you the ceremonial first question. What is your earliest memory of a comic or video game?
I'll do both because I think they're a few years apart. My earliest memory of a video game, I may have played like an NES or a SNES at friends' houses before this, but in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher suggested to my mom that she get me a video game of some kind to improve my handwriting.
I remember this story.
Yeah, this is the most origin story. So I was a smart for my age kid. I read a lot. I would do well on like computer assignments, but I would do abysmally on like written assignments because my handwriting was and still is garbage. So my teacher was like, at a parent-teacher conference, is like, I've heard video games can help improve that hand-eye coordination, and it'll improve his handwriting.
That teacher was a sleeper cell. Was just like doing it for everyone.
That teacher's uncle actually worked at Nintendo.
Yes. So I got a secondhand original brick Game Boy from my cousin who did not play it much. I think I got Tetris, Yoshi, and like maybe Super Mario Bros, like the Game Boy one. And I loved Tetris. I played so much Tetris. Oh, I think I had Space Invaders too, like a lot of those like just very early arcade ports. And I fell in love with video games, and my handwriting did not improve because of it. So that teacher might also be a hack. From there, we got because we were chewing through batteries so much, my dad looked into other games, and we got, I think, a secondhand NES from my mom's sister of all people, or like through her, which came with Duck Hunt and a different Mario, and a track game that used the Dance Dance Revolution pad. So I had like a DDR pad for the NES.
I think I know
but not DDR.
About.
Yeah. And then we got a
track
Game
and field,
Gear.
right?
Yeah, track and field. And then we got a Game Gear, and the revelation there was the Game Gear could plug in and not chew through 6 AA batteries.
But if you didn't plug it in,
that thing chewed through batteries like a motherfucker.
So I played Game Gear tethered to a wall for a while, and then finally in 1998 we got Pokemon Red, and then after Derek saved over my first Pokemon file, we got a Pokemon Blue, and then we got Game Boy. We each got Game Boy Colors when something else came out. It wasn't for, or maybe it was when he got Blue. We each got Game Boy Colors, and that was that, as they say, was history. My first comic memory is originally like the Sunday paper. Like I read the funnies in the Sunday paper all the time. I had multiple Garfield collections. Calvin and Hobbes. I read Calvin and Hobbes collections whenever I went to the library.
I guess now that you mention it, I had like 7 Garfield books. I never once in my life considered books. Garfield in the same canon as like a comic, but you're right.
Yeah, they're comics.
They're absolutely
it's the same medium.
Yep,
sure is.
But my first like superhero comic book, my dad got for me, I think we were just like out running errands one day, and he needed something to shut me up. Because I think at that point in my life, I was like carrying around joke books and reading these like,
oh no,
just reading these like god awful jokes from the 30s through 60s to anyone who would listen to
somebody
me.
Just got back from the Scholastic Book Fair.
Yeah. So my dad, in an effort to shut me up, got me a handful of like Superman comics, and this was like, I don't know the year offhand, but it is very easy to place because it was the period of time where they revamped Superman's look, so he was blue and had electric hair and looked absolutely nothing like Superman that we know and love. It was like a turn of the millennium type. It was like a Y2K rebranding. They were like, we got to make Superman cool for the year 2000, and he had a blue and white suit and electric hair, and then in 6 months they were like, everyone hates this, and scrapped it. And he had a mullet for a little bit.
I've never seen this.
Yeah,
I'm Googling. I'm furiously Googling it right now.
If somebody finds it, put it in the doc.
All right.
Yeah, put it in the doc. And I have no idea what happened in those like 2 or 3 issues I had, because it was like the middle of a run. He literally, like I said, he literally was just like, and throw those on my order so that my son stops reading these god awful jokes to me in the truck. And from there, I like didn't super touch superhero comics until one of my friends in Boy Scouts like was a big comic book nerd, and I got into X-Men real big through them. And then as a latchkey kid, I would find myself in the library after school, the public library, not our school library, which had nope, that's not it.
That's not it?
No.
That's a different blue.
His face is like white, like not Caucasian, but like white. I'll find it. Hold on. Got it. Incoming.
What did you search for?
Blue Electric Superman.
Okay.
My favorite band.
My favorite Gatorade. Oh.
Wow.
That is dumb.
Yeah.
Like Static Shock.
It does look like Static Shock.
So from there, I read every comic in the Harrison Public Library, which was a lot of X-Men collections, a lot of Justice League collections, some Spider-Man collections. And then in high school, when I got a car, my high school and my home were about half an hour apart. And I was in theater, which started like 2 hours after school let out. So I would not drive home between school and theater. I would go to Borders and like pull a comic anthology off the shelf, find a corner where the employees wouldn't find me quickly, and read through the entirety of the Marvel Ultimate comics that way. That was my like 16 and 17. I did that. And yeah, I was a very early Wikipedia reader. I would pour through these like the comic links on Wikipedia and learn that way. I would frequently check out the Marvel hero encyclopedia and just like memorize that. So that is my comic books history.
Very cool. Right on. I like that. Yeah, I never would have thought of newspaper comics as like that same gateway, but it definitely is. Can you draw a line? You talked a little bit about how you got into Pokemon when you were young. Can you draw a line directly from your first experiences with Pokemon to the types of non-Pokemon games that you enjoy today?
Yeah, a little bit, because like Pokemon stands alone kind of as its own genre in a lot of ways, but I can definitely like point to the things I like about Pokemon and what attracts me to other things and other games from that. For the most part, I have not liked a single Pokemon like clone any attempt in the early 90s, early 2000s to like make a new Pokemon game was bad. And I think the most successful attempt was recently like Yokai Watch, and that's just like I'm a 30-year-old man. I'm not going to get into a new kids like monster collecting game. I'm sorry. But what I really liked about Pokemon was not the collection aspect so much as the like personalization aspect. Even more so than like other RPGs at the time with like the class system. It was just like you get to pick your 6 Pokemon, and they don't have to be good because it's an easy game. So like you can just pick your 6 Pokemon, and like that's your personality. It was very much the like I was a Charizard, level 100 Charizard boy. Like I and so games with that level of like customization and like role selection are what really get me these days. I love a good skill tree. And it's got to be a good skill tree, not like you get 3 choices and they make one aspect of gameplay better. Like the Skyrim skill tree is very good in my book because it's like you can pick any of them and it doesn't lock other ones out is a big part of that. But those are the kinds of games I like. Ones where you have that level of customization. It is not fast paced. You can set the game down on a menu and like nothing will happen and you can come pick it back up because I have ADHD, so I'm often doing 3 things at once and I hate dying because I watched 30 seconds of TV while I was playing my game.
What you're describing is any Switch game.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much.
Hey, Kyle, have we done the what's your partner Pokemon thing before on a previous like Pokemon episode?
I don't think so. And I mean the easy answer is like Charmander. Like I'm ride or die for the Charmander evolution line. I do not excel at the answering that, like, who's your favorite superhero, what's your favorite Pokemon question, because I love them all. They're all my children, and but yeah, like I love Charmander. I really like the Scyther line too. That's another one that's really stood out to me.
Wait, Scyther has evolutions now?
Yeah, he's got 2 now.
He's got 2 now.
Yeah.
He's got an evolution
from
Scizor. I knew about Scizor.
Kleavor's from Arceus.
Arceus.
Look up Kleavor. He rules.
Yeah. Wow. I really like Staryu and Starmie. Those are very cool, like alien-y Pokemon. I love but yeah. The other thing I really like about Pokemon that has gone away in the more recent games is the slice of life / like throwback to like pre-industrial Japan nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's such a part of the early games, and I love it so much, where it's just like you're a guy going out catching bugs. Like it's a
very,
guy who
it's very Ghibli. Very
Ghibli. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I had a third question for you, but you kind of answered it already. So I'm going to ask you your own question. What's your Sunday afternoon MCU movie, Kyle?
My Sunday afternoon MCU movie is probably Thor Ragnarok, but Winter Soldier, any of the Iron Mans, really, and the first Avengers all also like make the cut. But like
big Mickey Rourke fan.
Real big Mickey Rourke.
Well, I mean, there's a
Russian accent really do it for me.
There's a lot of lines that can be drawn between Mickey Rourke, Whiplash, and Kyle's favorite Superman, this blue electric guy.
This blue electric Superman. Well, no, what it really is if we're picking what I really truly love about Iron Man 2, it's the Elon Musk cameo, tying it back to our opening about Twitter.
Nice.
I was gonna say anything featuring Justin Hammer. Just give me more Justin Hammer.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm not done with Sam Rockwell yet.
No.
We'll see him in the Thunderbolts. I don't know
Or
why.
Armor Wars, I think.
That's
is probably more likely.
Either one. What'd you say?
Thunderbolts.
Hey, so anyway, Kyle, I want to complete what I have come to know as the trifecta of your personality and talk about trading card games. So we know that you love both Magic and Pokemon, but could you list any other TCGs you've invested time, money, or both into, and talk just a little bit about your journey through being a nerd on the TCG side of things?
Yeah, so I'll start with my journey, and then I'll like touch on some other TCGs I've played, because like for a while it is like a little bit of Pokemon, this much Magic, and then like some other TCGs as
Kyle,
like
people can't see.
Yeah, that's gonna come across awesome on the audio podcast.
You got. I did the fish was this big motion, guys. So I got into Pokemon like every other elementary school boy got into Pokemon when the boom happened, and it was just like you get that dopamine hit of cracking open a pack, smelling the factory sealed cards, and praying that you opened the $100 card Charizard. And I loved it. I had no idea how to play it for like the first 2 years until the Game Boy game came out, and we all learned. And then immediately all my friends were like, yeah, we don't want to play by the real rules. We want to play war with Pokemon cards. So like that was a bummer to me. And then my school banned Pokemon cards like every other school in America at the time, because kids were fighting and stealing and conniving to take the valuable cards from smaller, lesser kids. So that got banned, and my friend group was like, hey, here's this cool loophole. It's a game made by the same company called Magic the Gathering that they didn't ban. So I got into Magic that way, and I was hooked as soon as I learned how to play that. Mostly because right around the same time I got a PC for my like 13th or 14th birthday from my parents, being like, you're gonna go into high school soon, you should have a way to research and type papers. And I used it instead to read every single article written about Magic that I could find over and over and over and over again. Wizards of the Coast Magic was like actually a pretty early adapter of like reaching your fans through the internet, because surprise, it's made by a bunch of nerds, and nerds love the internet. So like
their whole thing.
It's their whole thing.
Yeah.
So I like read about like upcoming sets, like cool deck ideas, cool new ways to play. But also in that, I got a surprising amount of like game theory, like lessons and like essays written by the people who like make the game I love so much. So like I just consumed these articles on wizardsofthecoast.com, and it's actually like it's pretty sad to me that like somewhere around 2012 they like revamped the site, and it killed a whole bunch of old articles. They're unreadable now because like their code is all spread out through them.
You think you could do it on the Wayback Machine?
I have tried, and like some of them work, but also like there's one where like the head designer of Magic wrote this like 50-word article on like brevity is the whole point of it. So like that's why it's 50 words. But each of it gets even more meta, where each of those 50 words is a hyperlink to an article about like what that word means in the context of making Magic. It's so meta and nerdy and awesome, and it's like absolutely completely broken. So like it's that's my great loss from my childhood, is that the Wizards of the Coast revamped the Magic website, and I can't read any of my
the real Library of Alexandria
anymore.
Situation.
Yeah. So like that is my connection to Magic. I still like view a lot of media through the 5-color lens of magic and like what the philosophy behind the colors means, and I like view characters through that. So that's always going to be with me. Like I had an hour van ride for work the other day, and I like just vibed out on like, wonder what color this character is, and like thought about it and decided, and then like moved on to another one, and that was like my whole hour drive that morning. So that's magic. I did tournaments for a little while, and towards the end of high school I had a friend who had more disposable income than me and was easily influenced by my playing of Magic, that he like we helped each other. We did tournaments. I think I got like top 32 in a big like statewide tournament in Indiana one year, and that's about the peak of that.
To tie it back, he was the Cal Ripken to your Ricky Bobby. There's a sick Talladega Nights reference there for you, Todd.
Wow,
good.
And then it fell off for a little bit in college because like going up and being like, do you want to play Magic the Gathering as a college kid is embarrassing.
Do you want to play Magic the Gathering?
Yeah, that's a very good impression of me freshman year.
Yeah. Got him
until I lived in our fraternity house. The last 2 years I lived with enough other nerds that also played that we like got a weekly Magic night going for a while until one of our other roommates ruined it by being a toxic player.
I really want to paint this picture, because this was the year after Andrew and I graduated, and we weren't in on this, at least weren't initially. I don't know if Andrew
you guys were busy being different nerds, right. Playing different League of Legends.
No, but this was the domino effect that led to me being at Meyer at 3 a.m. with Kyle, buying Magic cards, or learning how to double scan the packs of Magic cards so you'd only pay for 2 of the 4 of them. Well, and I looked at Kyle and said, Kyle, what am I doing with my life? He said, you're here in Meyer with me.
Me not understanding that you recent college grad Andrew were like having a crisis. Right. I was just like, we're playing Magic.
We're playing Magic, dude. So here's my thing. I remember going over to the house one day, as all cool alumni do once you graduate, and walking in and seeing a kitchen table with just what I imagine is the Scarface pile of cocaine version of Magic cards just being cut up and divvied between a couple dudes. And then suddenly 3 more dudes show up, and you all put chairs around the table and started putting decks together because you were going to play 6-person Magic. And I was like, I can't be here. I can't watch this.
You sure were there. Great. So from there, after graduation, my like Magic playing dropped off entirely. I tried to play Magic Online on my like crappy 2008 Dell laptop for a while, and like just couldn't hack it / was spending too much money trying to keep that flame alive.
Kyle was just trying to get a fix wherever he could get it.
I legitimately, which leads us to the next big like trading card game I played was Hearthstone. And I got into that so heavily because it could be played on an iPad, which I happened to have at the time. And I played Hearthstone more or less from its like creation till I dropped off during the pandemic. It just like got away from me, but like the game was different enough. They weren't making cards that I liked, sets that I liked enough, and I dropped off there. And I picked up Magic again shortly after that because MTG Arena came out and I could play that on Mac. So I was back on the Magic train for a while, and now it's all Marvel Snap, baby.
Yeah, there it is.
Other than that, we like Derek, the progenitor of this flavor text, and I did play Yu-Gi-Oh for a while when Yu-Gi-Oh was popular. I had fun playing it because I do like trading card games. It was never like my super cup of tea. Part of that is because like high level Yu-Gi-Oh is like a 2-turn game tops. It's one of those game like high level Yu-Gi-Oh, especially at the time, was like 1 turn zero, where like each player would draw their hands and immediately know the winner.
Isn't that
so
like I play Pot of Greed?
I was gonna say, but did you play Pot of Greed?
I did play a lot of Pot of Greeds, and knew how good Pot of Greed was because of all of the game theory I had learned from my time reading Magic the Gathering articles. We played the Digimon trading card game for a little bit as well. That is wonky and weird to play.
It's really hard.
It's really hard. It's another one I don't super like because you need a play mat to like learn it and play it properly, and like cards move through zones. It actually would work well as a mobile game now, but like it wasn't part of the appeal of like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh and the Pokemon trading card game is like you can throw a deck in a bag and you can
you don't need a bunch of stuff.
It's time to duel anyone, anywhere, at any time. Someone. I have played some other digital like not trading card games because they weren't tradable, but collector's card games. There was I forget this one. There was a Magic Pro kind of left Magic for a while to create a mobile game that was really fun. You played cards, and as you played them, they like evolved, for lack of a better word. So it was like very much a digital only game, and it was a lot of fun, but it was like me and 500 other people max playing it, so it just died off. There was another one that I played during my Hearthstone years called Eternal that was very much trying to like was as close to a Magic clone as it could be without violating copyright law. That was a lot of fun because it was a Magic clone. It was just like Magic Light, poor man's Magic. It was a lot of fun. It was very easy to play for free. So I didn't sink a ton of money into it. But it is now also like gone off the rails. I check back in on it every so often, and it's like, oh yeah, this is just busted and broken now. And there was another one I played for a little while around the time I got into Hearthstone called Duelist with a Y. That was like a combination.
Where's
card,
the Y?
LYST?
LYST, okay.
Yeah.
I was having a hard time with that right then.
And that was a combination like card battler and mini fig battler. So your card, you'd build a deck of these monsters, and then you would move them around a field and like trap your opponent into winning or something. Also very short-lived. It was just gone one day when I tried to log on through Steam. Also, fortunately, didn't sink a ton of money into it, so that's not a big deal. But yeah,
it's a money laundering scheme.
Yeah, it's a money laundering scheme. No, it was just like it's hard to get a non-Magic game off the ground, especially if you don't have a well-known IP behind it like Marvel or Blizzard. So it just couldn't hack it against Hearthstone at the time was the big thing.
Right on. Well, that is all of my questions for you, Kyle, unless Todd, Andrew, you have anything you want to add?
Kyle, if you were a Magic color, what color would you be? Or a series of colors?
I like to think of myself as blue-green.
Why is that?
Green-blue, actually. Green is the very, like the world is as it is, and we all accept that. It's the very, like, accepting, like, Zen color. And then blue is the, like, figure everything out, solve the puzzle color. So I find myself in a blend of those two, if I had to guess.
I like that.
Yeah.
Is the Speed Force the best and worst thing the DC universe has ever built?
The Speed Force it's a tie between the Speed Force and Batman with Prep Time. Are the
What a good answer.
All right.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Excellent. Well, that makes it my turn. So one of you guys has to ask me questions because I'm not going to
Yeah, Matt, it's your turn. Here we go, Matt.
Okay, Todd.
All right. So Matt, you've asked us the same questions. We'll open up with that. What is your earliest memory of a comic or video game?
Yeah, my video game memories start really early. My dad got an NES as a wedding present. And so when I was...
Oh, that's so cool.
Right? Yeah, doesn't that rip? So when I was really young, I played on our NES a lot. We had the Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt combo, which I played a ton of. It's still behind me on this shelf. I played a lot of the NES Jeopardy game, which I did not understand and infuriated me. There was a monster truck game that I played a lot of, and a US volleyball game that I played a bunch of as well.
Okay.
NES. But the thing is that I was born in 93, which was well after the true heyday of the NES, and by the time I was old enough to hold a controller and click buttons, the NES was near the end of its lifespan. So some of my earliest memories are my dad coming home from the local video store with these are the NES cartridges that they were selling. I got us new games for the NES because we never had a Super Nintendo. And I'll never forget my dad bringing home a shiny, fresh, heavily used copy of Kid Icarus for the NES, and we could never get it to work. And it's like my collector's white whale that's really easy to find because Kid Icarus isn't rare. But there is just something very early on in my memory about this. It is cool to find old games. It is rare to find old games that work. And when you do find old games that work, they should be played and be celebrated, which is that earliest memory that started me down the collecting old shit I'll never use path in life. I also had a brick Game Boy really, really early. My grandma had a brick Game Boy for some reason that I found at her house and was like, "Can I have this?" And she said yes. And so there was one Easter that I really specifically remember finding in my Easter basket, which was in my grandparents' oven. I don't know why I remember that, but
sure,
probably because it's so bizarre.
Yeah. But I got a copy
about how it might
of
burn down the house.
Centipede and Battletoads.
All right.
So that was those were some of my early games, and then I got an N64 not long after they came out, and I got a Game Boy Color also not too long after they came out. So I started on sort of these hand-me-down retro consoles that were a little bit before my time, and then got into what came out for me and just really, really fell hard into Nintendo land. As far as comics go, I guess a similar experience to Kyle. I had never really thought of comics in the newspaper as comics, but they sure are. And I was also very into the funnies as a kid, but I have never been a reader. I did not read a lot. I went to school during No Child Left Behind, so I was taught to read for the answer and not for comprehension. And I've never looked back. And so I remember reading comics in the newspaper. I remember getting really into comic characters through Saturday morning cartoons. DC and Warner Brothers was really popping off when I was a kid. Batman Beyond and Static Shock were definitely some earlier.
I totally meant to mention Batman the Animated Beyond. Series, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, the Justice League cartoons that spun out of that same universe. All were very formative to my comic book knowledge. Yes.
Yeah, and then we actually had, we had the super 450 channels cable, and one of those channels was Boomerang. Which just ran old shows. And I remember at one point being really into the old Justice League of America or Super Friends, the old Super Friends show.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched a bunch of that. But my dad was really into Superman, and as you know, the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies came out, my dad was into that sort of action movie, and I was young and impressionable and fell in love with Marvel really quickly.
I have a follow-up before we go on to the next question. So you had mentioned, or at least hinted to, and you've certainly talked about on our podcast, your love of like collecting games. What is, if not your prized possession that you have out of your collection, what is like one of the notable items of your physical collection right now?
Ooh, okay, that's a good one. So one of the most notable things for me that like I have that isn't super important is the Super Nintendo I bought when I got out of college, because it was like one of my first, like, I have the money and I'm gonna buy like a console, and I had every other Nintendo console. I never had a Super Nintendo. So buying my first Super Nintendo for me personally was like, wow, this is a really cool moment, and I'm really happy about this. I am on the slow path in life to collecting all of the N64 games. And I have a lot of the ones that are like not ultra rare expensive, but are the games that everybody wants kind of expensive. So like Ocarina, Majora's Mask, Mario Party, Smash Brothers, all of those that like I'm not going to have to pay somebody $75 for because I bought them in the box. But my big, like, if I'm going to throw my weight as a collector around, I have the box to my Wii, my N64, and my the original NES box, all still in like perfect condition. So if I ever wanted to like rebox my NES and put it on a wall, I could. I never will. I don't collect things to look at them. I collect things to like use them.
Yeah.
I'm much more into like, you know, a shitty copy of some game that somebody wrote their name on that I got for like 25 cents than I am into like, oh, I paid for this game in a jewel case. But I think like looking quickly around at the things that I collect, I think my NES box and my N64 box, because it's the N64 Pokemon Stadium bundle box.
Nice.
And like the plastic's still in really good shape. I have all the foam. Like it's in, for a fucking box, it's in really good condition.
On a similar thread, Matt, so we've been now to a dozen of these like retro game cons, which are full of what Matt calls tub thumb, but with tub was it tub thumbing?
Thumb and buckets. You're here to thumb bucket.
Tub thumbing by Chumbawamba.
Thumb and buckets is my favorite D&D NPC name.
Nice. Is there? So we've been to a lot of these where the people sell these things. Is there something that can come up in your mind, like one, like either game or thing that's like an immediate eye roll, or is like, I can't believe somebody would buy this, or like, I can't believe people sell this for this price?
Any of the Mario Party games. Holy shit. Every Mario Party game is overpriced. Anybody who wants you to pay more than $40 for a Mario Party game, you should punch him in the mouth. Yeah, man. Like, I really like Nintendo stuff, and Nintendo stuff is hard because Nintendo doesn't lower their prices ever. You know, Sony and Microsoft and other game companies work like real businesses where they're like, nobody's buying this thing from 80 years ago. We can knock the price down.
Let's make it $10. Yeah.
But no, not Nintendo. So like everybody thinks that because quote unquote retail price of an N64 game is still $59.95, that like people can find these common ass N64 games and be like, yeah, that's $70. Get out of
Breath of the Wild is still $40.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And it will be $40 forever.
Yeah.
Till Nintendo goes under. So Matt, I think I asked you this in Portland, but Portland was such a whirlwind, I absolutely don't remember the answer. What's the hardest N64 game to acquire? To complete the collection.
There's one, and I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's one that like numerically we know where all of them are and no more exist.
Oh wow.
Okay.
That's kind of
gotcha.
Cool.
Yeah. Or actually that might be for Super Nintendo. I think that's one of the track event games for Super Nintendo. I was actually just listening to a podcast
the
about
World
this.
Championships.
It is not the World Championship cart, but that one is really hard to find. I think it's called Track Events. I would have to look, but that is a Super Nintendo game. I'm almost sure that just like we know where they all are and there aren't any more, and bummer.
Yeah. And yeah.
As far as N64 games, like I think that it will get to a point where the hardest ones to find are common games everyone is hoarding. You know, like the Legend of Zelda games for the N64 are starting to get stupid overpriced.
Yeah.
And it's going to get to a point where like the limiting factor is less about like finding it than it is
what the person wants to separate with it.
Right, exactly. So like, yeah, the World Championship card is like super hard to find. Clay Racer or Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut is another one that's like super, super difficult to get your hands on. Honestly, Mario 64, like if you don't already have it, you're gonna have to sacrifice a child to get it, which is silly. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm scrolling through this list right now, and all of these are games that are pretty standard. One of the Turok sequels is also really hard to find. 2, maybe
Seeds of Evil.
Yeah, I think so. Is really tough to find, but I think N64, and this is to piggyback off a podcast that I'll pitch now, which is the Video Game History Hour, run by the Video Game History Foundation. They were talking in their last episode about how the infrastructure to get these sort of things exists, right? You know, we are at a point in culture where any game you want, you can buy. You just have to meet the price, right? You know, the internet, eBay, things like Portland all exist, that it's a lot less about thumb and bucket these days, where like
and opening wallets.
You know,
thumb
like,
and bucket.
I got my first copy of Star Fox 64 off eBay, and that was like a long time ago when eBay was kind of fresh and new, and it was like, oh my god, you can buy video games from the internet and they'll come to you in the mail. What the shit?
And not everyone had 8 indexes of prices to cross examine, so you might actually pick things up for a decent price sometimes. So definitely the weird thing about collecting these days is that like you're not limited by like geographically or by what you can find. It's really just about what you're willing to pay, which is why I get a lot more fun out of thumb and bucket, and just like looking for those diamonds in the rough or things that it's like, this is on my list, but nobody else cares. Like Kid Icarus is a good example of like just a game that I want to have because I want to have it, but not one that, you know, is going to cost me an arm and a leg or is going to be really hard to find. What's the best deal? What's the best like you couldn't believe you found the thing for the price that you've gotten?
Oh yeah, dude, I bought Perfect Dark for $2. I was like, hell yeah, man. It smells like cigarette smoke, but it was $2. I also got whatever Mario Party was on the Wii, and I don't remember which one, 7, maybe. I think it might have been 7. I bought that off Facebook Marketplace for like under $5, and that one's a pricey one. Mario Party 5 is one of those one of those common games that's gotten blown out in price. And I just have Mario Party 5 from like when it came out, so that's fun. The big thing I've been telling people who are like, how do you get into video game collecting? I've been telling people, go right now, buy yourself a physical copy of Breath of the Wild and don't open it, and then forget that you have it for 50 years. And then congratulations, you're a video game collector. Like that's especially when it comes to Nintendo, it's really just like buy stuff today and see how long you can go without breaking it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you are our resident edgy horror boy. So I mean, as you've shared multiple times, you do spookums on the side as a gig.
I do a spookum. I do.
You do haunts.
The haunts and the spookums, two separate things. So here's the question. So what quote, sharpened your edge, so to speak, and got you into horror? And if we're talking specifically about like comic horror, one would lean to like Ghost Rider. What got you into those sort of things?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it, I was trying to trace it back because this is one of the questions that Derek, when he commissioned this, asked me as an example. I was kind of trying to trace back like how I got here, because a lot of my earliest memories of horror are really hating it. I was terrified of scary movies. I did not grow up watching like, you know, your Freddys and your Jasons and your Texas Chainsaw Massacres. I was terrified of like jump scares and scary things, and I really hated it.
Interesting.
I think that a lot of my interest in like what I would call macabre, or like the macabre, was kind of my interest in like Power Rangers and the villains in like Power Rangers, or Big Bad Beetleborgs, or you know, gargoyles, or street sharks, or whatever. And I kind of started to like, you know, the darker tales, the brooding tales. And then I remember at the Giant Eagle in my hometown, there was a Jurassic...
That was a made-up word. Keep going.
There was a Jurassic Park, like, I don't know what to call it, like an early VR rail shooter game where you, like, sat in a cart. You sat in a box, and it had curtains on either side, so it was immersive. And it had a, like, velociraptor jump scare, and it traumatized me. And I was very upset. I also, as a kid, was traumatized by my cousin who had a fake severed arm. One day when we were like play fighting, he shut that fake severed arm in his door and said I cut his arm off, and it ruined me as a child.
And that's why you always leave a note, Matt.
And so somewhere around those events occurring, I had a moment where I stood in the mirror in my bathroom and I said, never again. And I just kind of started like immersing myself a little bit. I got really into Discovery and Travel Channel used to do these like scariest haunted houses in America. But they weren't like, you know, it wasn't like bump in the night haunted houses. It was haunted attractions. And I got really interested in the way that haunted attractions worked, and the science behind scaring people, and how all of those things kind of came together at a very young age. And I said earlier, like I was into Pokemon, and like, or not Pokemon, sorry, I was into like Power Rangers and stuff. I was also into James Bond, and some of the James Bond villains are very horror inspired, with like Jaws and Baron Samedi and stuff like that. And so all of that stuff kind of led me up to this point. I was really into WWE. I really liked pro wrestling. And that was the other. That was the other thing. So all of that led up to this nexus point, which I refer to colloquially as 2007, when I developed this fun little thing called clinical depression and found new metal.
Oh, fun.
And my determination to immerse myself in things that were scary, my new love of this cool band from the West Coast called Korn, and 2007's Nick Cage Ghost Rider movie just really scratched some itches for me.
Yeah.
It all hit at the same
your
time.
Sugar Spice, everything nice and chemical.
Yeah, and it, like I remember the feeling. This sucks, and I'm so mad I'm about to say it on the internet, but I remember the feeling when the original 2007 Ghost Rider ended, and the end credits of that movie are set to a cover of Ghost Riders in the Sky by Spiderbait, the band who did Black Betty, the cover that everybody knows. And the Spiderbait cover of Ghost Riders in the Sky became my whole personality.
Right.
And it was all kind of downhill from there.
Ghost Rider related question, Matt. You did a flavor text over Ghost Rider, and you told us about like 20 some different writers of ghosts. Do you have like a top three, Ghost Rider, like a your favorite one, your one that you didn't know you loved, and like the zaniest one that you just want to remind people exists?
Yeah,
it's like an F, Marry, kill, like kind of in the situation with Ghost Rider.
Forget Todd's question.
Yeah, fuck, Marry, kill Ghost Riders.
Well, you have to give me 3 Ghost Riders first. That's the.
No, I don't.
No, it's just all the Ghost Riders.
Which Ghost Rider would you bang?
Is it Goose Rider?
It's not. It's not Goose Rider.
All right. Well, whatever you prove.
So I bang Barbara Ketch, and then I marry Kashala, and then I kill Frank Castle, Cosmic Ghost Rider, because that one's fair. The worst. I don't remember. I did the flavor text, and I'll admit that I don't remember the context behind the Fear Itself comic cover where it's 2 Ghost Riders kissing.
You want to kill that moment?
I'd like to bang specifically that Ghost Rider.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. I guess to answer your original question, Johnny Blaze is my favorite Ghost Rider, largely because of the times that Johnny Blaze wasn't Ghost Rider and kept just like palling around with Ghost Rider anyway.
Yeah.
He had no powers but a Hellfire shotgun and was like, but still, this is the life for me. I like that a lot. Kashala rules. Kashala is the underrated Ghost Rider. I want Madison from She-Hulk to be Kashala in the MCU.
Right,
give
whatever.
it to me. And then, yeah, dude, Frank Castle Ghost Rider sucks. Cosmic Ghost Rider sucks. The whole Cosmic Ghost Rider taking baby Thanos through a journey as to whether or not he should baby Hitler, it sucks.
Right.
It's bad, and I hate all of it.
Yeah, there was, again, on the famous social media platform, the TikTok today, it summarized his run in like 45 seconds where, he like begs for any sort of power and Mephisto leads him to the Ghost Rider power. And then he also gets Galactus's power because Galactus is dying. And then, yeah, he has a daddy's day out with baby Thanos.
They always give out Galactus's power when they do that. They did it in Marvel Zombies. Ate Galactus and got Galactus.
Right.
Or no, they ate Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
And then summoned Galactus and ate Galactus, and that was stupid.
The whole thing with Cosmic Ghost Rider is it's like, what if you had all of the power and no world left to lord it over? And that, honestly, is just not an interesting question to ask a comic book reader, IMO. Especially when it's like...
They do that a lot, too.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, the point of Old Man Hulk and stuff.
And especially when you, like, wrap in this whole... the baby Hitler question of, like... Is it cool to solve a problem before it becomes a problem? And then like Thanos kills a bunch of people. It's that run sucks. It just sucks. I'm done talking about it. It sucks.
This next one's my question. So I'll ask it. Matt, you are our most, I would say, like ride or die MCU apologist.
Oh, that hurts, but okay, I agree.
When did you decide you were like ride or die for the MCU, and like what's the hardest MCU movie you have to defend?
Oh man. Okay. I've seen every MCU movie in theaters on release weekend except The Incredible Hulk. Every single one. Am I proud of that? No. Is it a fact? Yes.
What's the one you're least proud of seeing at midnight?
Thor 2. Thor 2, absolutely Thor 2.
Is that also
one didn't
the hardest
come out in
to
theaters?
defend?
I thought we went through this.
Yeah, no, that's canon.
No, it's not the hardest to defend. The hardest to defend is probably Age of Ultron because it is my favorite and I really love it. And also Joss Whedon made it suck. And there's just no way around that. But when did I decide that I was like all in was probably the first Avengers. Like I cited First Avengers as my favorite movie beside 2003's Bruce Almighty for years of my life. That was a pretty pivotal moment for me, especially because Avengers happened in cinema around the time that Harry Potter was wrapping up in cinema, which I was very invested in as a kid.
It was a year later.
Yeah. So like as my I
Movie
need to
theater.
see every Harry Potter movie when it releases and I need to be really invested in this ended, the MCU was there to just like pick it up.
Well, what are we other than one hyperfixation after the next, right?
Right.
Man, I don't know. I've been in therapy for a long time trying to figure that out.
If you would have told 18-year-old, this was 2008, 18-year-old Kyle working in a movie theater that he should have grabbed the Iron Man poster instead of the Dark Knight poster, he would have laughed in your face. Oh my God, I'm so mad I did not get an Iron Man poster when I worked at the movie theater that summer, because that thing would talk about a collectible these days.
Yeah.
An original movie theater printing of the Iron Man poster.
Here's a question, Matt. So Age of Ultron.
Yep.
It is period.
Got it.
It is a point of debate of, has that movie been more important over the years? I would say yes. I think many would agree.
Yeah.
How would you, Matt, fix that movie if you had, what the movie is now, what it leads to, its shortcomings. Oh boy, there are shortcomings. What are like 3 things you would do to maybe give that movie a facelift to be better?
I think 3-point plan. All right.
Yeah.
Point number 1.
You kicked in K. Faija's door.
Point number 1. You cut the Hulk Natasha love storyline. It is bad. I rewatched Age of Ultron the other night, and
is that your Sunday watch?
It tends to be. It's on that list, yeah.
Fair.
But I watched it the other night and was reminded of that scene where Natasha pulls Bruce Banner in close, kisses him, and is like, "I adore you," and then shoves him in a pit and says, "But I need the other guy." And like, oh,
right.
Come on.
It sucks.
So that's,
and I would say that wasn't even the worst part.
No. That's point 1. Right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are going to think point 2 is cut the Hawkeye farm scene, but you're wrong. That's really important.
No. Hawkeye farm scene is
good.
great.
A Hawkeye farm scene is great.
Don't ask anyone in 2014 to say
well,
that. Yeah, it was derided.
2014 was wrong about a lot of things.
It's true. Point two is that you need more of James Spader's Ultron becoming red pilled by the internet, basically. Like, you need more of James. That instantaneous, like, I've seen the internet and it was too much, while hilarious
Again,
to look
fair.
back on. Like, very funny. I wanted more of, like, Ultron's descent into madness.
Just more Ultron altogether.
Yes.
Like,
and specifically James Spader's Ultron, because I really like James Spader's Ultron. And then point 3 is I would have liked both Quicksilver and Ultron to have exited that movie in a way that they could be brought back more easily.
Right.
But that point 3 is less necessary. Honestly, like, if you cut the Bruce Natasha storyline, a lot of the problems from Age of Ultron go away just right there.
Do you think that movie is better with less characters, or does it hold itself up with its cast?
Well,
go ahead, Todd.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, Thor only gets like 7 minutes of screen time. They calculated it when it was all said and done.
And most of that is devoted to the, like, Can Vision
setting up the B
hammer
plot that goes through everything else.
Yeah. I think that it doesn't necessarily need more or less characters. I think time just needs to be, like, re-allotted, because, like, the reason that I love Age of Ultron so much is because what it does to the family dynamic of the Avengers and the way it develops the relationships between the Avengers, and the rivalry between Tony and Steve is really, like, set up in that movie. This whole idea of Clint has a family to come home to, and like, superheroing's just his day job. Like, all of those things are what laid the groundwork for where we are in the MCU now, where we have a She-Hulk saying like, yeah, man, like there's a guy named the Man Bull and he's just like doing it these days. And Mr. Immortal just like marries people and it's whatever. Like the ability to look at superheroes on a day-to-day level, I really think was laid as a groundwork in Age of Ultron. And had they spent more time, you know, investigating those relationships than trying to like, no, Bruce, you can bang me. I can't have children. It's fine. Yeah, like
it's very Joss Whedon, like for good and bad, because like Joss Whedon does a very good job at those like team dynamics and like the infighting and like relationships that build because of that. But he also writes women like garbage. So it's very Joss Whedon for good and bad in that regard.
And I really like the relationship between Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. I think it's really cool. It's a shame that we don't get to see more of that. You know, like their big introduction to the field is the the bad guy at the beginning of the movie,
Baron Strucker.
Thank you. Hydra Grunt number 7. You know, he's talking about like, well, we have the twins, but we can't release the twins. They're not ready. And then they just like disappear. And if we would have instead had this moment of Wanda and Pietro talking about like, you know, this is our home and these people experimented on us to be the guardians of Sokovia, and like we need to fight back against that, and just having more of their relationship as a family, I think would have been much more interesting than Helen Cho asking if Thor is going to be at the party because she has the hots for Thor. Yeah. I know we're running kind of long. Does anybody else have any questions before we call a wrap?
I got one more, and that is, Matt, you are also probably like our most competitive gamer, or like in public gamer. I'm thinking of your Pokemon Pinball high score, your Guitar Hero
touring group that went to malls and played Guitar Hero songs live in front of people.
And then you're our Overwatch and Overwatch 2 boy as well. How did you get into those scenes? And like, what other games have you played competitively or semi-competitively? Even if it's like a dabble and you're like, nope, I can't go down that road again kind of sense.
Oh man, this unlocks some really dark memories. So here we go. Pokemon Pinball, like, fun joke. There was nothing that was like, oh, I got to get really good at Pokemon Pinball. I just sat down to play that game one day and never stopped. So that's that. As far as Guitar Hero goes, most of my competitive gaming was done at the GameStop in the Clearview Mall in Butler, Pennsylvania, which I think now lies like a Goliath skeleton of a mall, like all do. But
like all malls,
yeah. The last thing I heard that they were doing at my mall is that they opened early so people from the community could come and do laps and walk in the mall.
That is a thing.
Yeah. So anyway, there was a GameStop in that mall, and we frequented that GameStop because there was a GameStop and there was an EB Games, and the EB Games wasn't any good. And most of us got to know the like manager and the other, you know, sweaty nerds who hung around the GameStop. Guitar Hero got really, really big in my group of friends. I was a single friend removed from the anime troupe that Andrew was in. Different time, different year, same people.
One flame shirt removed.
Yeah, man. Like, I had some friends who were really, really into Toonami and really into DBZ, and those friends also got really into Guitar Hero. And I was an only child. I liked rock music. I was primed to get into Guitar Hero. So there's this guy who used to hang out at the mall. His name was Nacho. and Nacho hung out. He was either in the food court, the GameStop, or the New Dimension Comics. He wore the same green trench coat every day. His name was Nacho. What do you want?
Brief aside, I recently learned the word nacho and the word Nazi have the same etymological origin.
Oh, fun.
Wow.
Go on.
Those developed largely different connotations. So Nacho was the buddy of the GameStop manager who organized a lot of these tournaments, or like would say like, you should do a tournament for this game, or you should do a tournament for this game. So I played in my fair share of like DDR tournaments, Super Smash Brothers Melee tournaments, Guitar Hero tournaments, then Rock Band tournaments, and my sweaty nerd friends from GameStop became my band H&D. And yeah, like we just kind of went for it. What was interesting though is that like when you talk about Overwatch 2, I didn't have a PlayStation until very late. I bought a PlayStation to play Dance Dance Revolution. I did not have PlayStation Network. I did not have an Xbox. I was not on Xbox Live. I was not your Calls of Duty or your Medals of Honor was not me. So a lot of those I missed out on. And then, yeah, in 2016, when Overwatch came out, I had been on kind of a streak of not really playing video games. I didn't play a ton of games in college. I mostly played Super Smash Brothers Brawl because that's what the fraternity house had. And I was on the internet one day and somebody was like, hey, you want to play hockey, but you shoot each other and everyone's a superhero? And I was like, I sure do. I sure do. I want that more than anything.
That is the greatest way to explain Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't have anything to play Overwatch on. I actually just got like really into watching Overwatch. And then when it came to Switch, it was the end of my life.
It was game over.
Like doing heroin for the first time.
Who was it that was the cat? Like, who decided that we were all going to get weird into Overwatch? Was it you?
It was me. It was all me.
I genuinely don't remember.
Because I had been counting down the days until Overwatch came out on a system that I had. Because I didn't have a PC.
You orchestrated a global pandemic for the purposes of getting us.
Well, the pandemic happened first, because the pandemic happened and we made the Smash Brothers Discord.
Right.
And pandemic happened in March. Overwatch came out in May. And in May, I was like, you guys, wouldn't it be awesome if we all got really into this game?
And I said, no, I won't play it until Overwatch 2 comes out.
Yeah. And now you are. Yeah. We all are. We are all of us Overwatch 2.
Isn't.
I'm not. I stopped chasing the dragon.
What you say now.
Yeah, whatever.
I have 4 other battle passes that I have.
All right. Well, we have gone nice and long. We've talked about ourselves a lot. I know I, for one, am uncomfortable, so I think I'm ready to wrap up. Do you guys have anything else you want to throw in here at the end? Great. I'll take your silence as an agreement. Anyway, thanks for listening to Debate This. You can follow along with the arguments on Yik Yak, MySpace, and Mastodon. Who did this?
Those are the chief 3 social media platforms now, Matt.
Oh, wow. You didn't even put TikTok on there.
I had TikTok, Tumblr, and Mastodon, and Todd changed it to Yik Yak, MySpace.
We need to pick 3 that people don't actually use because we don't have a Debate This account on any of these.
Well, I read TikTok, and I haven't read the words TikTok in a long time. I'm like, that's like Yik Yak. I remember that.
Yik Yak is back, apparently.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Great. Anyway, thanks for listening. You can follow along at not those places and also on our website at debatethiscast.com. Also, a huge thanks to the Harmacist in our Discord for commissioning this flavor text. Like I mentioned earlier, commissions are on hold through the end of the year. If you already have a commission in with us, have no worries. We will be filling out like all the commissions that we have, and we will reopen commissions once we get a little bit caught up. Once we do reopen those commissions, we are planning to only open them to our Patreon. So if you are not already a member of #ButtThwompNation, consider joining up over at patreon.com/debatethiscast. Get access to our Discord, get extended show bonus things, and stuff. Do it and stuff. I didn't have anything written and I panicked a little bit. Until next time, I'm Matt Cole.
I'm Todd. Sacrificing a child for Mario 64 is just the law of equivalent exchange, Thomas.
I'm Andrew, one pair of spray-painted arthritis gloves away from going to a 2023 anime convention, Henderson.
And I'm Kyle, the giant dominoes meme, but Jon Favreau putting a little-known tech billionaire in a cameo role in Iron Man 2 to the total collapse of a social media platform, Harper.
Can we change it to Eli Lilly losing $8 billion? And we're saying thanks for debating with us. And if you think we're wrong, you can come fight us behind the swing sets, nerds.
And now, a Spooktacular Express spooky review read. This review titled Untitled.
If you like nerdy stuff, listen to this podcast. These guys are hilarious and constantly bring their A-game to every episode. Pay special attention to the flavor text episodes. They do a great job breaking down nerdy topics and making them very accessible to your average listener. Subscribe forever and you won't regret it.
This review titled Untitled.
Debate This has worked its way into my weekly podcast repertoire. The Debate This boys specialize in two things. One, deep diving the lore on topics their fans request, which usually feels like a great video essay you listen to with three friends, making jokes or asking questions about while you listen. Two, making the best debates about the stupidest topics imaginable. It's like, like a car crash, but you cannot look away.
This has been a Spooktacular Express spooky review read.